Hey guys, Horror Lorekeeper here. Today we're tackling a spicy one that pits two haunted bloodlines against each other. Are the Emilys any better than the Aftons? Our angle is a direct comparison. The Aftons are openly monstrous, the Emilys are quietly broken. And we're going to ask, psychologically, who's actually more damaged? We'll tour how both families look on screen, how they behave when we encounter them, the shared story that runs from rainy alleys and living rooms to underground labs, and a restaurant built to burn, and the main theories that try to sort culpability from catastrophe. We'll cover appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. Henry Emily, the man who tried to build magic for kids and ended up building a prison for ghosts. We're going to break down the crushing guilt that drives him, Survivor's guilt over losing his daughter while his partner's monster of a son kept walking, the inventor's curse of realizing your tech-enabled murders, the question of whether he suspected William and stayed passive, the FNAF 6 ending as basically an elaborate controlled suicide, and the psychology of revenge, burning everything down instead of going to the police. And we're gonna use that hook, the man who built hell to destroy his best friend. We'll lean on the Pizzeria Simulator tapes, the FNAF 3 hidden mini-games, and how he's portrayed in the novels. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, let's put Henry in the right corner of the universe. Henry is the other half of the original Fazbear Dream, the creative, the builder, the one who made the animatronics actually work. In a lot of tellings, William Afton is the corrupted knife in the story, but Henry is the workshop. We're talking about the era of small locations, wood-paneled stages, basic security, and the early innocent versions of Freddy and the gang. Then tragedy hits. His daughter is lured, taken, killed by one of the very machines he helped bring to life. From that moment on, every Fazbear room Henry touches changes tone. No longer a fun pizzeria, but a carefully designed trap. Think of the FNAF 6 location. It looks like a modest little restaurant, but down below, fire systems, salvaged chairs, a built-in crematorium. That's Henry's stage. Outwardly normal, inwardly Judgment Day. Since we're doing horror lore, let's see him. We don't get a crisp 4K shot of Henry, but the material we do have paints him as measured, tired, deliberate. We can imagine an older man, face-lined, eyes serious, voice calm in the Pizzeria Simulator recordings. Expressionless, but unsettling. Not because he's evil, but because he's carrying decades of regret. No wild movements, no manic Afton energy. He's the quiet one. We can see a workshop coat, maybe oil stains, a man who spent more time at the bench than at the front counter. And by the time of FNAF 6, we can hear the finality. He sounds like someone who has already decided to die. So when do we actually encounter Henry? Mostly at the end of things. We meet him in Pizzeria Simulator when the game reveals itself. When the fun management sim turns into haha, this was a revenge furnace. That's important. Henry doesn't show up to guide you through the nights. He shows up when the plan is complete. That's passive guilt turning into active guilt. He's been watching, letting things get to a point where he can gather everyone. Afton, the possessed animatronics, even his own daughter's spirit, and end it in one clean burn. That's not a moment of rage decision. That's a man who sat with guilt for years. Let's start with the big one, Survivor's guilt. His daughter died. Williams lived. In the FNAF 3 hidden minigames and in the wider lore, we see the story of Charlie, Henry's daughter, being killed outside the pizzeria, lured by an animatronic, and later becoming tied to the puppet. That's Henry's wound. He built a place to delight kids, and his kid died. Meanwhile, William's line, specifically William himself, and in some continuities, his corrupted body as Springtrap, just keeps going. Imagine being Henry and watching the killer's legacy walk around in metal while your child's life is reduced to a mask and a music box. That's textbook Survivor's guilt mixed with injustice. My innocent one died, the guilty one lived. That kind of imbalance drives people to extreme balance the scales plans. Like, say, locking everyone in a building and burning it. The inventor's curse, realizing your tech enabled the murders. Henry isn't just a grieving father. He's an engineer whose creations were weaponized. That's a uniquely awful guilt. I made the thing, therefore I helped. The early FNAF tech, spring-lock suits, autonomous animatronics, security-defeating mascots are all things Henry and Afton were pushing. Afton used that access to lure kids where cameras didn't reach. Even if Henry didn't touch a single child, he made the world in which they could be taken. That's the inventor's curse. The Oppenheimer thing. I made it to help. It was used to hurt. People with that kind of guilt often become hyper-controlling later, trying to design safety through destruction. That's exactly what FNAF 6 is, a final piece of technology whose only purpose is to undo your previous technology. Passive versus active. V. Guilt. Did he suspect William but do nothing? This is the uncomfortable question the games hint at but never say outright. Henry and William were partners. Henry is smart. Kids start vanishing around your animatronic restaurants, and you don't suspect the guy who's always in the back room with the suits. Come on. So the psychological reading is, Henry probably suspected something was wrong early, but chose not to confront Afton. Maybe because of business, maybe because of friendship, maybe because he didn't want to believe it. That's passive guilt, the guilt of omission. Later, when he knows for sure, he flips to active guilt. I am going to fix this even if it kills me. People do that. They overcorrect. His silence at the start explains the fire at the end. Suicidal ideation. The FNAF 6 ending as an elaborate suicide mission. Let's talk about that speech. To you, trapped in the corridors. To you, the one you should not have killed. Henry talks like a man signing off. He says the building will burn. He makes no provision for himself to escape. He planned a restaurant whose end condition is everyone inside dying. That is not just vengeance. That's self-destruction. Psychologically, that's consistent with long-term unresolved guilt. I let it happen, so I don't deserve to walk away. We don't see Henry running for the exit. We see him narrating the end. That's almost poetic suicide. He built hell, invited the devil, stepped inside, and shut the door. The psychology of revenge, burning everything versus seeking justice. Why didn't Henry just go to the police? Because in FNAF, justice systems don't stop ghosts. Henry isn't just trying to jail William. He's trying to release souls and stop a supernatural loop. That's why fire is his tool. Fire purifies, ends haunting, destroys hardware. From a psychology angle, that's called totalistic revenge. The kind where you don't just want the person punished, you want the entire world that allowed it to burn. He's not just mad at Afton, he's mad at Fazbear, at the building, at the animatronics that trapped his daughter's soul, so he burns the brand. That's not justice. Justice is proportionate. This is annihilation. The man who built hell to destroy his best friend. This is a betrayal story at its core. Henry and William start as collaborators. One of them, William, secretly kills children. The other, Henry, realizes it too late. Betrayal by someone you trusted is psychologically devastating because it makes you doubt your own judgment. How did I not see this? That self-doubt feeds guilt. Henry's answer is, next time I will see it. I will control every variable. That's why the pizzeria simulator setup is so tight. Specific animatronics lured, specific ventilation, a pre-recorded speech. He removed the possibility of surprise because surprise is how William got him the first time. Let's walk Henry's story like a mini playthrough so we can see the shift from passive to active guilt. Setup: two guys build a restaurant. Animatronics work, kids are happy. This is the ordinary world. Inciting wound: Henry's daughter is killed using an animatronic, the very symbol of his success. Realization: disappearances keep happening. Patterns emerge. The only one with that access is William. Passive period: Henry doesn't stop Fazbear outright. Maybe he grieves. Maybe he tries to fix puppet tech to protect souls. FNAF 3 minigame vibes. But he doesn't burn it all, yet. Designing the trap, eventually he decides normal justice won't work, so he builds a new location disguised as a normal one, but it's actually a slaughterhouse for ghosts. Final confrontation, he lures in Afton as Springtrap, the possessed animatronics, even his daughter's puppet essence, and burns it. He narrates it like a eulogy. He includes himself in the cleansing. Active guilt fulfilled. So what does this all mean for Henry's psychology? The most solid theory is, Henry lives in chronic survivor's guilt and turns it into engineered atonement. He outlived his daughter. He outlived the partnership. He watched the wrong man keep coming back. So he decides his life's final purpose is to erase the evil he failed to stop. That's why his tone in the pizzeria simulator tapes is so calm. He's not raging, he's resolved. He's already accepted his punishment. Another fan-friendly reading is that Henry's passive guilt period is what gives rise to all the later hauntings. If he had confronted William after the first death, maybe the remnant experiments wouldn't have happened. Maybe the souls wouldn't have been stuck. So FNAF players sometimes read Henry as tragically complicit. Not bad, but too slow. That makes his later self-immolation make sense. He's not just killing the monsters, he's paying for loose tea time. Let's split what's supported versus what we infer. Supported by Pizzeria Simulator, Henry set up a pizzeria specifically to gather and burn the haunted animatronics in Afton. He speaks like a man saying goodbye. Supported by FNAF 3 minigames, his daughter was killed and became connected to the puppet, which in turn helps free souls. A father trying to fix what was broken. Supported by novel characterization, Henry is portrayed as brilliant, damaged, and haunted by what his partner did using his creations. Inferred, Henry suspected William early but didn't act. Henry intended to die in the fire. Henry's choice of fire is both practical and symbolic revenge. And that's what makes Henry such a powerful figure in FNAF. He's the guilty good guy. William is evil and knows it. Henry is good and knows he failed. That second kind of guilt is heavier. It keeps you up. It makes you build entire death restaurants. Alright, that's gonna do it for the crushing guilt of Henry Emily. A psychological analysis. Survivor's guilt over his daughter. The inventor's curse. The shift from passive to active guilt. The FNAF 6. I'm going down with the ship suicide mission. And the revenge psychology of a man who built hell to destroy his best friend. The disturbing psychology of Charlotte Emily. And her revenge. Is she protecting or punishing? Hero or monster? We're going to break down how Charlotte of the Puppet looks and moves, what triggers her in gameplay, how her story unfolds from security puppet to give gifts, give life, to being sealed inside Lefty, and the leading theories on what her revenge really is. Punishment, protection, or liberation. We'll hit appearance, behavior, story, and theories. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First context. On the surface, Charlotte lives in the FNAF 2 era, the prize corner with its relentless music box, but her shadow stretches backward into the alley outside a small family diner and forward into Pizzeria Simulator and FNAF 3's hidden minigames. If we had to place her on a map, she occupies liminal edges, the threshold of a pizzeria door, the prize corner tucked off to the side, the border between the day's noise and the night's regret. Picture that cramped prize corner from Cam 11, plushies and prize shelves, a glass case reflecting our flashlight, and behind it all, the slow spin of a music box key that feels less like a toy and more like a ventilator keeping something alive. Before we talk motives, we need to see her, the puppet, the marionette. Tall and lanky and humanoid, moving with a floating glide that ignores floor squeaks. We can see the white, porcelain smooth faceplate, expressionless but unsettling, with painted blush circles and tear tracks like black ink that never dried. We notice the long black body with white arm stripes and 3 pale buttons down the chest. Almost a funeral suit reimagined as a doll. When she rises from the prize corner, the head tilts. The limbs hang just wrong, and the face doesn't change even a little. There's no mouth snarl, no eye flash. The horror is that the mask never moves. For the moment the music box dies, you're too late on the wind, and that white face snaps straight into yours. Later in Lefty, we can see a new shell and black suit, star on the chest. But if we watch closely in those salvage moments, we notice something familiar in the posture, the patience. The way the air seems to thicken when it looks at us. Function and behavior. When does the player actually encounter her, and what flips the switch? In FNAF 2, her entire loop is a contract. Keep the music box wound or she comes. That's the trigger, not noise, not light, but neglect. Let the melody die and she rises, floats down the hall, and delivers an instant jump scare that neither the Freddy head nor quick reflexes can stop. You feel it every time you panic switch to Cam 11 and spam the win button, ignoring every other threat because you know the puppet doesn't play by their rules. Her threat profile is different from the other toys and Wizards. They play peekaboo with the mask and vents. She enforces a ritual. Fail the ritual and there's no bargaining. If we break her into phases like a boss with evolutions, it goes basic, mid, late, basic, security puppet, tired child phase. A small child at a party in the rain, locked outside. The security puppet breaks its case and crawls through the door. Circuitry and soul meet in the alley. In the security puppet minigame, we watch it step out of the box, dodge balloons and tables, and drag itself toward the doorway while the party keeps going without it. Mid, prize corner puppet, the marionette who patrols from the box. Ritual enforcer, give gifts, give life in minigames. minigames, a guardian who's also a judge. In FNAF 2, that's the thing behind the Win Music Box UI. The reason you can't just camp the mask. In the Give Gifts, Give Life minigame, we literally move the puppet from body to body, watching it turn corpses into characters. Late, Lefty Containment, the star-chested bear suit designed to capture her. In the salvage, she sits and waits. In the finale, she's named and burned with the others. In Pizzeria Simulator's salvage interface, you flip the monitor down, play audio, and pray Lefty hasn't inched any closer when you look up. That's Charlotte, buried in a corporate trap, biding her time. With behavior out of the way, let's pull her into the broader lore. Charlotte is Henry Emily's daughter. In the most accepted reading of the hidden minigames, she's murdered outside the restaurant during a party, separated from safety by a locked door while it rains. The security puppet. T, a smaller mask-like variant, leaves its case, seeks the child, and lies on her body in the alley. That moment, machine shielding child from cold, is the axis the puppet turns on. It suggests a psychology not of hunger, but of protection fused to grief. After that, the puppet becomes the protector that also punishes. Give gifts, give life isn't a random phrase. It's the franchise's thesis for Charlotte. Collect, clothe, crown, and animate the fallen with purpose. She's the one who organizes a haunting. Setup, the alley and the locked door. Now, let's run the story like a narrated playthrough. Setup, investigation, rising danger, final confrontation, ending. We begin not at midnight, but at dusk. The party's inside, the posters are bright, and the door is shut. We can smell wet pavement. The child is outside. We watch as a simple security puppet, smaller, boxed behind glass, senses something wrong, slips free, and crawls out into the weather. We can see little shoes, we can see the ribbon, we can see the rain darkening the boxy paper crown. There's a shape in the dark that isn't apparent. We don't need to see the knife. The silence is enough. The puppet reaches the child and drapes its body over hers like a blanket. It's small, utilitarian, weak, and it refuses to leave. What would you do if you were locked out in that rain, watching the party through the glass? If remnant is the science and agony is the weapon, this is the origin, an act of love that becomes a lasting bond. Investigation. The prize corner contract cut to FNAF 2. We're in the office with too many vents and not enough hands. On the left monitor, a tiny wheel spins. We can hear a music box stitched to time itself. Our job is suddenly a ritual. Wind, wind, wind. Every other threat we treat with quick masks and light flicks. The puppet is different. She is the cost of forgetting. We see her in the arcade art as a sad string figure. We feel her when the melody stutters. You know that moment when the warning jingle speeds up and you ignore a hallway threat just to slam the music box back to full. The psychology of this is sharp. Charlotte enforces memory. If you let the place return to mindless routine, she rises. If you remember, if you keep the song alive, she stays put. She doesn't want you dead so much as she wants the dead remembered. But the game has no empathy meter, so she kills you anyway. That's the difference between Guardian and Avenger. Same face, different targets, and the player sits in the crossfire. Is that a hero? Or just another executioner in stripes? Rising danger. Give gifts, give life. Across minigames, we watch the puppet move in slow, deliberate acts. We can see the Christmas-colored sprites. We can see the dead on the floor. We can see the puppet putting gifts, and then masks, onto bodies. She isn't creating monsters, she's assigning identities back to the nameless. The gesture is almost priestly. We're told, quietly in the margins, that possession anchors to attachment and agony. The puppet seems to choose how that attachment will express. In a normal ghost story, the spirit rages blindly. Here, Charlotte curates the haunting like a librarian of grief. That's disturbing because it's not chaotic, it's purposeful. If you're siding with Charlotte right now, thinking she's just helping the kids, this is where that comfort starts to crack. Final confrontation, the trap and the fire. By the time we reach Pizzeria Simulator, Henry understands what his daughter became and what she's still doing. He builds Lefty specifically to contain her. We can imagine him designing it with shaking hands, a suit that looks like any other black bear, star on the chest, hiding a purpose, a cage for the puppet. In the salvage sequence, Lefty sits under fluorescent light. We take notes, glance down, look back up. Every flicker on the audio lure, every tiny pose change is Henry's desperate attempt to bottle his own child in a corporate form. This isn't just a hostile animatronic with a clipboard. It's Henry trying to catch his child so he can finally free her in a fire made for William. On the final night, his recorded speech names her explicitly, my daughter, and tells her to rest. That's the difference between her revenge and Aftons' persistence. Charlotte's ends when the work is done. Before we move on, let's mini profile each major form: appearance, role, threat, and as if we're flipping cams: security puppet, mini game, small mask body, striped arms, fragile and stubborn. Role, first responder, shield in the rain. Threat, none to us, origin of the bond, that helpless side view in the mini game where all it can do is lie over the body. The puppet, marionette, FNAF 2. Porcelain face, ink tears, lanky and human. Oid, role, ritual enforcer, soul organizer. Threat, instant jump scare if the music box lapses. Mask-proof hallway filling terror you hear coming in the rising music box queue. Lefty, FNAF 6, black bear suit, star badge, expressionless but unsettling patience. Role, containment shell for Charlotte, delivery to the fire. Threat, salvage mind games, inches when we look away, that awful stillness in your office when every other salvaged animatronic is also waiting to pounce. So what's the psychology under that mask? Why does Charlotte read more chilling than a sprinting Foxy? Guardian turned Avenger. The alley scene imprints two paired instincts: protect and remember. In FNAF 2, those impulses calcify into rule enforcement. Keep the song, remember the wrong, and the place survives the night. Neglect it, and she comes. But an Avenger who lives in a place that keeps reopening will always look like a monster to the night guard. That's the horrible irony. If you were the uniform who ignored the first reports, she'd be your nightmare. If you're a bystander trying to keep the lights on, she still is. Because the system keeps demanding the wrong kind of normal. Compulsion for ritual. Charlotte's behaviors are procedural. Wind, gift, mask, uplift. Rituals are how traumatized minds impose meaning on horror. A child who died because a door didn't open creates a rule that must be followed. The lockstep of the music box, the order of the gifts, the sequence of the names. She can't keep herself alive anymore, so she keeps the memory of the dead alive through you. Attachment to edge spaces. She lives in corners, behind glass, in a prize case, in the threshold of a door, later inside Lefty's chest. Psychologically, that maps to her liminal moment of death. Outside looking in, almost saved, too late. She shuns center stage and commands it from the margins. When she does take center stage, the mini games, it's only to hand the stage to others. Instrumental anger. Charlotte doesn't lash out randomly. Her anger is instrumental. It achieves tasks. Gather children, bind them into forms that can move. Point all of that at a name, Afton, and then finally accept release. That's a colder brand of vengeance than we see in other spirits. It's terrifying because it feels adult in a child's body. If your team she's a hero right now, keep that in mind. Heroes don't usually need you to die to prove their point. What does revenge mean for Charlotte? This brings us to the big question. So what does revenge actually mean for Charlotte Emily? If you're firmly on the Guardian side, this is where things get complicated. Restorative revenge. The likeliest reading is that Charlotte's revenge is restorative rather than purely punitive. She is not trying to rack up bodies, she's trying to equalize an imbalance. The world took children and left them uncounted. She counts them, crowns them, and arms them with identity. The music box is a metronome of remembrance. The jump scare is what happens when that obligation is ignored. In the end, her revenge completes itself not by killing the killer, Henry and Michael handle the fire, but by refusing to let the victims disappear until it's safe to let them go. In this view, her attack on the player is collateral damage of a Guardian who can't trust anyone in a Freddy's uniform. Misdirected aggression. An alternative fan reading is misdirected aggression. Charlotte's pain is so fused with the building that any guard reads as the enemy, a uniformed proxy for the adults who failed her. The music box becomes less about remembrance and more about control, a self-soothing compulsion that keeps her anchored. In this lens, she attacks because the pattern breaks, not because of moral calculus. The protective narrative is something we project. The puppet is a spirit trapped in a loop, ritual technician. A third angle draws on book-aligned mechanics, remnant agony. Charlotte as an entity who learned that ritual acts move souls, give gifts, give life is not poetry, it's procedure. Her revenge is the application of that procedure to undo Williams, a lab tech using the lab for mercy. That's why Henry builds Lefty, not to punish her, but to catch her, so the last necessary procedure, heat, can free her too. Let's separate what's supported in-game from what we're inferring. Supported security puppet leaves its case in the rain to reach a dying child. The puppet in FNAF 2 is tied to the music box and ignores the Freddy mask. Many games depict give gifts, give life. In FNAF 6, Lefty is built to contain the puppet and is present for Henry's cleansing fire. Strongly suggested, Charlotte's spirit is the puppet. She acts to organize the other spirits. Henry's speech in the fire addresses his daughter and releases her. Inferred, the music box as a remembrance mechanic, how far Charlotte consciously chooses identities for the possessed. Whether her aggression toward the player is judgment of complicity or pure reflex. The pattern, though, stays consistent. An edge-dwelling protector who becomes the avenger of forgotten children. Before we close, a quick walkthrough style tip for reading any future puppet adjacent moment. If a scene introduces a ritual, wind, gift, name, burn, ask who that ritual serves. Corporate procedure or Charlotte's counting of the dead. If a suit looks empty but the air changes around it, ask whether you're seeing a shell or a cage. And if music starts to fade in a room that once held a party, assume Charlotte is already in the hallway, measuring whether you remembered. Here's the tidy, slightly sinister line to leave ringing. If you were on night shift, staring down that hallway as the music dies, would you really call her a hero? Or just another killer with a better reason? Afton made a place where children vanish. Charlotte made sure they were seen. Even if you had to die to see them, that's her revenge. Not simple murder, but memory with teeth. A guardian and an avenger, forcing you to choose which one you believe in. Drop your verdict in the comments. Is Charlotte Emily protecting or punishing? Hero, monster, or something in between? So when you think about Charlotte, the alley, the music box, and the fire, ask yourself one last time, are you looking at a guardian of memory, an avenger of the forgotten, or both wearing the same painted smile? Are William Afton and Henry Emily really that different? We're going to compare their appearance and vibe across the games, how they behave when we actually encounter them, the shared timeline that welds their lives together from family diner days to a restaurant designed to burn, and the strongest interpretations about where they overlap and where the line in the sand truly is. So sit back, relax, and let's dive back into the world of FNAF. First, context. This question lives in the stretch between the early family diner era, FNAF 3 hidden mini games, the FNAF 2 timeframe, puppet music box, sister location facility under the carnival paint, and pizzeria simulator, FNAF 6. That cheery storefront built over a salvage lab and a crematorium's worth of parts and service. Upstairs, you've got the greasy pizza smell, sticky floors, and neon party banners. Down below, cold metal corridors, humming vents, and the low roar of machines that were never meant for birthdays. Afton and Henry co-create the dream. Kids show up, something unspeakable happens outside in the rain. After that, one man uses tech to harvest the dead, and the other man uses tech to contain them. Same blueprint, opposite hearts. If you were standing in that first diner, watching them shake hands, could you tell which one would become which kind of monster? Appearance, faces of two monsters. Before the psychology, let's see them, the way the game staged their faces. William Afton shows up in 3 bodies. Human William is neat and forgettable, ordinary and predatory, the kind of dad you wouldn't look at twice at a PTA meeting. The retro purple guy is a stick figure silhouette with too much intent, thin limbs, sharp angles, moving like a glitch with a purpose. Then there's Springtrap, Scrap Trap, yellow-green plating torn open, meat threaded through hinges, jaw perpetually ajar, mangled and nightmarish, like rot trapped in a suit that never stops creaking. He's a walking, you can't get rid of me. Henry Emily is almost the negative of that. We rarely see him, but we hear him. Slow, measured, deliberate. Imagine an older engineer's face lit by monitor glow, eye bags from sleepless nights, a steady voice in a salvage tape that never trembles even when he names his own daughter. Expressionless, but unsettling, not because he's a predator, but because he's already made peace with dying. By the time of FNAF 6, his appearance is architectural. Lefty's star badge, the bolted salvage chairs, the vents that only pull air one way, the restaurant layout itself like a diagram of regret. Henry is the man whose face is a plan, same calm delivery, different soul underneath. Which voice would you trust if all you had was the tape and the dark? Function, when they move, what they do. Function and behavior, when do we actually encounter them and what flips their switches. Afton triggers when systems can hide him. After hours hallways, springlock suits, training tapes, maintenance rooms. The back door of empathy where nobody checks the cameras. He thrives in the hum of fluorescent lights and the blind spots between rooms. Threat profile. He creates the threats, builds lures for kids, experiments with Remnant, crawls back inside a suit that should have stayed dead, and keeps using whatever will move. Henry triggers when containment is possible. He doesn't stalk knights. He waits until everything is gathered. In FNAF 6, he appears at the end of the checklist. Once Lefty has her, once Springtrap is inside, once the vents are set and the grease in the walls is just dry enough to burn. Threat profile. He names the threats, locks the doors, and then burns them. One hides inside the system, the other weaponizes the system's end. If you were in Henry's chair, would you pull the fire or look for another way out? Phases. If they were animatronic bosses. If we staged them as animatronics with phases, they'd escalate like this. William Afton. Basic human killer behind the mascot. Organized lures, quiet back rooms, mid-lab narcissist, remnant possession tinkering, believes he outranks death, late, Springtrap, scrap trap, rotting corpse in a rabbit suit, persistence as personality, Henry Emily, basic, builder partner, brings characters to life, trusts the wrong man, mid, grieving engineer, security puppet and protective tech, guilt simmering into plans, late, FNAF 6 architect, salvage rituals, lefty as a cage, recorded eulogy, accepts his own end, same 3-act rise, different final form. Which final phase feels more monstrous to you? The thing the at won't die, or the man who designs his own funeral? Shared story, same timeline, split path. Now the walkthrough, shared story as a playthrough that makes the comparisons pop. Setup, 2 men build a place for kid. Wood paneled stage, cheap posters, a small town's repeat customers. The air is heavy with hot cheese, fryer oil, and sugar from birthday cake. William handles the knives you can't see. Henry handles the smiles you can. Similarity number 1. Both are fathers and engineers who think with tools and rooms. Same dream, shared stage. Different intentions, hiding off frame, inciting wound, the rain and the locked door. Outside, cold rain beats against asphalt, turning the parking lot into a mirror of smeared neon. The locked door glows warm from the inside. Laughter, music, the clatter of plates. A child, Charlotte, is on the wrong side of that threshold. The security puppet shatters its glass, throws itself out into the storm, and drags its little striped body across the wet concrete. It reaches her and just lies there. Metal against skin, rain soaking both. Love fuses to circuitry. Meanwhile, disappearances start stacking. Children go in and don't come out. Similarity the Satu. Both men learn that their creations can touch the afterlife. Difference number 1, William responds with harvest. How do I use this? Henry responds with protection. How do I stop this? If you were watching that door on camera, rain pouring down, who would you blame? The suits, the system, or yourself? Escalation. Kids vanish, tech advances. Afton turns possession into a laboratory. Sister location shows us polished chrome halls that smell like ozone and disinfectant. Pastel clown paint smeared over surgical steel. Voices coo and comfort while animatronic arms quietly open you up. Care is just a skin over experiments. Henry's response is quieter, more suffocating. He bakes guardian logic into design. Puppet first, then lefty. His workbench smells like old coffee, ink, and solder. He writes procedures that sound like prayers. Win the box, follow the checklist, seal the room. Similarity number 3. Both retool a kid's venue into a device. Difference number 2. Afton's devices create suffering. Henry's devices aggregate suffering to end it. The masks crack. Families fall apart. Elizabeth dies to circus babies lure. Michael descends into vented metal intestines to put her back together. The crying child's last breaths echo under hospital beeps after a stage stunt goes wrong and jaws slam shut. Birthday balloons deflate slowly in empty rooms. Party hats sit abandoned on sticky tables. The smell of frosting lingers over crime scenes. Similarity number 4. Both men lose children tied directly to their work. Difference number 3. Afton doubles down. God complex. I always come back energy. Henry slows down. Guilt, blueprints for containment. If your own child died because of something you built, would you try to outsmart death like Afton? Or try to make sure no one ever builds like you again, like Henry? Endgame, the salvage pizzeria. Henry invites every ghost and Afton himself into a cheerful TNT box. Bright posters, cheap plastic cups, the faint burnt cheese smell baked into the ceiling. Fans whir overhead, pushing hot air air through paper-thin walls that are already soaked in grease. Similarity number 5, both speak like managers giving instructions. Difference number 4, listen to what they manage. Afton manages secrecy and denial. Always one more scheme, one more comeback. Henry manages naming and release, reading out a final roll call before he sets everything on fire. The sprinkler system, cosmetic. The vents, funnels for smoke. The fire treats them the same. Their reasons for staying in it could not be more different. If you were trapped in that office as the walls started to glow, would you see them as two monsters? Or just two different brands of the same thing? Psychology. Mirrors with cracks. So, are they really that different once you strip down the animatronics? Let's put their psychologies side by side, where they genuinely overlap control obsession. Each believes a room can be made to obey. Afton corrals children and death. Henry corrals grief and ghosts. They both fetishize procedure, spring locks and training tapes versus salvage prompts and controlled burns. They hand you checklists instead of comfort. Instrumental morality. Neither is improvising. Afton's murders have a lab objective. Henry's fire has a ritual objective. From the night guard's chair, the coldness feels eerily similar. Complicity in the mask. The brand survives because two brilliant men solve problems with costume logic. Pretty shells over machinery. That DNA is on both of them. From your perspective at 2 a.m., fan humming, cameras flickering, do their motives actually matter, or just the fact that you're the one stuck in their system? Where the line is sharp motive. Afton's core, grandiosity. He deserves to outlive the rules, even if he has to tear children apart to do it. Henry's core, atonement. He deserves to die if it means those children rest. Relationship to children. For Afton, children are inputs, lures, raw material, ingredients for remnant. For Henry, children are names to be preserved. Give gifts, give life becomes his daughter's mission that he adopts. End state, Afton's end goal, keep existing, no matter what shape he has to wear. Henry's end goal, make sure no one like him or Afton gets to exist again. They both step into flame, one because he's cornered, one because he's finished. If you had their level of control, which path would you slide toward? Self-preservation or self-erasure? Rapid fire profiles, cam flips, quick mini profiles like we're flipping cams. Appearance, role. Threat, William Afton, human, Springtrap. Appearance, tidy dad, scorched rabbit suit, flesh leaking through cracks. Role, creator and contaminant. Threat, systems that hide him, late game immortality by sheer refusal to die. Henry Emily, engineer, architect. Appearance, gray, meticulous, expressionless, but unsettling voice. Role, designer of guardians, then designer of a trap for release. Threat, if you're haunted, his threat is heat. If you're the player, his threat is finality. No escape route planned. Same calm tone, different thing they're delivering you to. If one of these profiles flashed on your monitor as a stat card, who would you be more afraid to work for? No, theories. How fans read them, interpretations. Before we dive in, everything in this section is interpretation. Patterns fans draw from what the games show, not hard confirmed canon. Listen to the way they talk. Afton spits, I always come back. Henry in his eulogy calmly tells the killer, although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, and then turns to my daughter and offers rest. Same ritual tone, different destination. Interpretation number 1, the mirror with a crack theory. In this reading, Afton and Henry are mirrors. Same skills, same stage, same tools. The crack is motive. One man's love of control becomes predation. The other's love of control becomes penance. Procedurally, they feel the same from your chair. Checklists, rules, rituals, but trace the direction. Afton's procedures point inward, feeding his obsession and his survival. Henry's procedures point outward, toward the trapped, the named, the ones who never got justice. Which matters more to you, the method or the motive? Interpretation number 2, the system made them theory. Some fans argue the Fazbear machine blurs the line. Corporate denial, liability paranoia, keep the doors open no matter what. In this view, Henry's long silence after early disappearances and his choice to stage a secret fire instead of going public makes him structurally complicit. Afton is the active evil. Henry is the engineer who lets a bad system use him until he turns it against itself. That doesn't make them equal, but it narrows the moral gap for anyone caught below them. Like you, the night guard. If you were upper management at Fazbear, would you sign off on Henry's plan, or shut it down and let the ghost linger? Interpretation number 3, the two priests theory. Treat FNAF like a dark religion. Afton performs black sacraments, dismantling, harvesting, binding, turning suits into altars. Henry performs counter rituals, naming, gathering, burning, turning a restaurant into a funeral pyre. Same liturgy tools, animatronics, rooms, rituals, opposing gods, self versus the lost. The similarity isn't an accident, it's counterspell design. If this is a religion, whose ritual do you think actually wins in the end? Afton's corruption or Henry's purification? Canon versus interpretation. What's solid? Let's cleanly separate what's pretty solid from what we're inferring. Supported by the games. On screen, in text, Afton kills tied to Fazbear location. He survives a Springlock failure and returns as Springtrap Scrap Trap. He pursues or benefits from Remnant-style experiments. Henry designs Lefty to contain the puppet. He runs a faux pizzeria in FNAF 6 to salvage and burn all haunted entities. He addresses his daughter and the killer in a recorded finale. He does not plan an escape route for himself. Strongly suggested, heavily implied, Afton weaponizes kid-facing tech. Henry's earlier inaction curdles into guilt-driven planning. Henry's tone is acceptance. Afton's is refusal. The puppet's protective mission becomes Henry's responsibility as much as Charlotte's. Inferred, fan interpretation. How early Henry suspected William. Ether some guardian tech. Security puppet Lefty. Crossed ethical lines before the end. How much corporate pressure pushed Henry toward a secret furnace rather than public justice. The canon keeps motivations impressionistic, but their trajectories are consistent. From those trajectories alone, who chose their monstrosity and who chose their punishment? Conclusion: two kinds of monsters. So, are they really that different? From the office chair at 2 a.m., fan buzzing, stale pizza smell in the air? Maybe not. Both men turn your shift into a ritual. Both hide knives inside policy. Both speak with the calm of someone who already decided your night for you, but follow the smoke. One builds hell to hide in it. The other builds hell to end it. Same toolbox, opposite prayer. Strip away the animatronics and FNAF hands you a simple, nasty choice. One monster kills children to live forever. One monster kills his own legacy to make sure no one like him does again. Which kind of monster scares you more? Which one do you think the Fazbear world actually needs? And if you're honest, which one would you end up being? Alright, that's our breakdown of R. William Afton and Henry Emily. Really that different? The faces and functions that rhyme, the story beats that bind them, and the interpretations that split their motives like night and day. If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to leave a like, comment down below with which monster you'd side with and what you want to see next. And of course, subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more FNAF and horror content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Let's separate what's fairly grounded from what we're inferring, just to keep our feet under us. Supported by the games, William's killings and Springtrap persistence, Elizabeth's death by Baby and her return in scrap form, Michael's sister location scooping and survival, his presence for the FNAF 6 burn, Charlotte tied to the puppet to music box, and give gifts, give life. Lefty built to contain her. Henry's recorded eulogy and deliberate fire with no exit for himself. Strongly suggested Henry's long guilt arc. Charlotte's role as organizer rather than random rage. Michael's penitent mission. Inferred how early Henry suspected William. Whether Charlotte consciously assigns identities or acts by instinct. Whether Baby's tenderness is Elizabeth's memory or a predatory program wearing her voice. The canon leaves those edges foggy on purpose. So final pass at the question you asked. Are the Emilys any better than the Aftons? If better means less harmful, yes. The Emilys bend their damage toward release. If better means less damaged, not really. One family screams its pain outward, the other whispers it into ritual. William builds hell to hide in it. Charlotte counts the dead so they don't vanish. Henry builds hell to end it. Michael walks in because somebody has to turn the lights off. If you enjoyed this breakdown, remember to leave a like, comment down below with what you want to see next, and of course subscribe to Horror Lorekeeper for more FNAF and horror content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.